Welcome to our summary of The Black Swan by Nassim Nicholas Taleb. In The Black Swan, Nassim Taleb talks about how rare and unpredictable events can change everything we think we know about risk and prediction. The term Black Swan comes from the surprising discovery of black swans in Australia. Before that, people in Europe thought all swans were white. This shows how easily our knowledge can be wrong and reminds us that the past doesn't always predict the future. Taleb argues that these rare extreme events, what he calls black swans, have a much bigger impact on the world than the everyday things we usually pay attention to. The problem is, we often miss these events because we don't expect them, and we rely too much on models that focus on what's normal. This makes us overlook the importance of these rare events. To explain this, Taleb introduces two imaginary worlds, Mediocristan and Extremistan. In Mediocristan, things are predictable, and most events follow a normal pattern where nothing stands out too much. But in Extremistan, rare and extreme events dominate, and just one of these events can change everything. Through these ideas, Taleb challenges the way we think about randomness and uncertainty. He warns that in today's connected world, we are more exposed to black swans, meaning we need to rethink how we prepare for the unexpected. This sets up the book's main message. We need to accept that black swans are real, understand that we can't always predict them, and realize how much they can change our thinking, planning, and lives. In the first part of the book, Taleb looks at the mental blocks that stop us from seeing the uncertainties around us. He introduces the triplet of opacity, which includes three common ways our minds trick us. The first is the illusion of understanding. We often think we know how the world works, but our knowledge is shallow. This overconfidence leaves us unprepared for life's surprises. Next is retrospective distortion. This is when we look back at events and think we could have seen them coming. But in reality, these events were much less predictable than they seem in hindsight. This bias makes us believe we can predict and control future events just because we understand the past. The third is our overvaluation of facts and expert opinions. We tend to trust facts and what experts say without questioning them, which can blind us to what we don't know. We ignore the many failures and missed opportunities that could tell us a different story. Taleb also talks about the narrative fallacy, which is our habit of creating simple stories to explain complex events. While these stories help us understand the world, they can also oversimplify it, ignoring the randomness and complexity of real-life events, especially those that are rare and unexpected. Another issue is confirmation bias. This happens when we only pay attention to information that supports what we already believe and ignore anything that challenges our views. This makes it hard to change our understanding, even when new evidence comes up. Taleb also introduces the idea of silent evidence. This is the data we don't see because it's hidden. For example, we often focus on successful businesses and ignore the many failures, which can give us a false sense of reality. Finally, the ludic fallacy warns us against applying the clear and simple rules of games to the messy and unpredictable real world. In real life, there are many unknowns that can't be easily measured or predicted, which can lead us to wrongly believe we can control or foresee outcomes. The first part of The Black Swan encourages us to question our assumptions, rethink common beliefs, and stay open to the unexpected. By understanding and adjusting for these mental biases, we can better navigate a world full of uncertainty and be more prepared for those rare but powerful events that Taleb describes. Continuing from the first part's look at how our minds often mislead us, the second section digs even deeper into the problems with trying to predict the future in a world that's becoming more and more unpredictable, a place Taleb calls Extremistan. In this part, Taleb talks about the scandal of prediction, where experts often get it wrong, especially when it comes to big, unexpected events. He says these mistakes aren't just because people make errors, but because the tools we use to predict things don't work well in the real world, which is full of chaos and complexity. Experts often stick to a false sense of knowing what's going to happen, even when they've been wrong before, instead of admitting that some things in Extremistan can't be predicted. Taleb then shifts to the limitations of knowledge, where he explains that many scientific discoveries and innovations happen by accident. He challenges the idea that discovery is a straight, predictable path. For instance, the discovery of penicillin was a lucky accident, showing that staying open to surprises is important, because there's so much we don't know yet. Next, Taleb talks about the expert problem. He warns us not to rely too much on experts who might know a lot about one small thing, but miss the bigger, more chaotic picture where black swans happen. He explains the difference between knowing facts, know what, and being able to apply that knowledge effectively when things get unpredictable, know how. Taleb gives examples of times when experts didn't do any better than regular people, reminding us not to trust experts blindly, especially when dealing with uncertainty. In response to these issues, Taleb offers some strategies for coping with unpredictability. One key idea is the barbell strategy, which means being very careful with most of your resources while also taking some big risks with a small part. This way, you protect yourself with safe investments, but still leave room to take advantage of any big opportunities that come your way, like positive black swans. Taleb stresses that it's more important to be ready for anything rather than trying to predict what's going to happen. He suggests that instead of focusing on prediction, we should build systems that are strong and ready for surprises. In short, Part 2 is a strong argument against putting too much faith in predictions and experts. Taleb urges us to stop trying to predict the future and instead focus on being prepared for whatever might happen. This shift from prediction to preparedness is key to handling the surprises that a world full of black swans will bring. We need to build systems and ways of thinking that are tough enough to handle the unexpected. Moving on from the problems with prediction, Part 3 dives deeper into the unpredictable world of Extremistan. Taleb looks at how traditional tools for understanding randomness don't work well in a place where big, surprising events are the norm. In Extremistan, unpredictability isn't just possible, it's what defines the place. Here, one single event can completely change everything, breaking the usual patterns. This is very different from Mediocristan, where things mostly stay around the average and individual differences don't cause much disruption. Taleb points out that the Gaussian bell curve, which assumes most things are average, fails badly in Extremistan. It doesn't account for the extreme events, what Taleb calls fat tails, which makes it useless for understanding the real randomness in this chaotic environment. He is especially critical of how relying too much on Gaussian models, particularly in finance and economics, leads to a false sense of security. This over-reliance, which he calls the bell curve delusion, makes people underestimate the chances and impacts of extreme events, causing big mistakes in how we manage risks and prepare for crises. As a better alternative, Taleb introduces the idea of fractal randomness. Fractals, with their patterns that repeat at different scales, offer a clearer way to understand randomness. These patterns reflect real-world situations where outliers are common, helping us to better handle the complexities of Extremistan. Shifting from traditional models to fractal randomness moves us from being in the dark to a better awareness of what could happen, making us more ready for the unpredictabilities we face. Taleb then revisits the limits of prediction, saying that even with better models like fractals, trying to forecast exact outcomes in such a complex system is still very hard. He encourages us to focus less on predicting what will happen and more on making ourselves and our systems stronger. By accepting that there are limits to what we can know and preparing for the unexpected, we can create ways of living and working that not only survive shocks but also benefit from the opportunities that black swans bring. In the final parts of The Black Swan, Nassim Nicholas Taleb urges us to rethink how we deal with uncertainty and unpredictability. He says that instead of relying on flawed predictions to feel safe, we should accept that unpredictability is a natural part of life, especially in Extremistan, where big unexpected events are not just possible, but likely. Taleb believes that instead of trying to make perfect predictions, we should focus on building systems that are strong and flexible. This shift in thinking is crucial for surviving and thriving in a world full of surprises. Taleb also suggests we need to change how we think about risk. Instead of getting caught up in calculating the exact chances of rare events, which is often impossible, he advises us to focus on what might happen if those events do occur. By preparing for extreme outcomes, we can be ready for anything that comes our way, avoiding the false sense of security that comes from trusting too much in numbers and models that don't tell the whole story. Another important idea Taleb introduces is the concept of living in the pre-asymptote. This means understanding that the long-term effects of complex systems aren't always visible right away. It encourages us to stay open-minded and adaptable, knowing that what we currently understand is just a small part of a much larger and ever-changing reality. It's a call to move beyond old models and ways of thinking that might prevent us from seeing new developments. Taleb stresses the importance of building a society that not only survives black swans, but can also benefit from them. He criticizes our focus on efficiency, which can make us fragile, and instead suggests we build in extra safety measures and flexibility. These might seem unnecessary now, but they are key to surviving and thriving in a world where surprises are the norm. As he wraps up, Taleb highlights the need for intellectual humility and skepticism. Being too confident in what we think we know can blind us to our limits and leave us unprepared for surprises. By staying open to new ideas and willing to question what we know, we can keep learning and adapting, which makes us stronger. Taleb's main takeaway is that trying to predict the future exactly is a waste of time in a world full of uncertainty. Instead, we should focus on making sure we're ready for the unknown and even find ways to benefit from it. This means accepting that there's a limit to what we can know and recognizing that uncertainty will always be part of life. Taleb also encourages us to embrace uncertainty, not as something scary, but as a normal part of life. By preparing for the unexpected, we can develop a more flexible and strong way of making decisions. This approach helps us handle the complexities of the world better, ready to face both challenges and opportunities that come our way. In his final thoughts, Taleb explains why it's important to understand the different kinds of randomness and how they affect our lives. He talks about the differences between Mediocristan and Extremistan, where traditional models work in one but fail in the other because of the power of extreme events. By knowing these differences, we can better prepare for the risks we face in each environment. Taleb also looks at the mental biases that mess with our understanding of the world, like the narrative fallacy and confirmation bias. These biases make us simplify complicated situations and stick to what we already believe. The narrative fallacy leads us to create simple stories out of chaotic events, while confirmation bias makes us focus only on information that supports our existing views. Taleb urges us to fight these biases by questioning our assumptions and aiming for a clearer, more realistic understanding of the world around us. Taleb looks at the positive side of uncertainty, showing how unexpected events and lucky accidents can lead to big innovations and new ideas. When we embrace the unknown, we open ourselves up to opportunities that we wouldn't see if we were only focused on trying to predict everything. In this way, uncertainty isn't just something to be afraid of. It can be a source of growth and change. In his final thoughts, Taleb talks about the importance of building a society that doesn't just survive when black swans happen, but actually benefits from them. He suggests that instead of trying to control everything, we should focus on making our systems strong and flexible so they can handle surprises. This approach is more than just about being efficient. It's about being ready for the unexpected and even turning it to our advantage. This change in thinking isn't just about using new strategies. It's about completely rethinking how we approach knowledge, risk, and decision-making in a world full of uncertainty. Taleb imagines a society that thrives on the unexpected, using the unknown to drive growth and innovation. His conclusion pulls together the main ideas of the book, challenging us to rethink how we deal with the unpredictable parts of life. If you enjoyed this summary, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us bring you more insightful book summaries and practical advice. Stay tuned for more content that can help you achieve your financial goals and personal growth. Thanks for watching.